Hi, hello, vanakkam, and welcome back to yet another episode on Little's Law YouTube channel. So, today in this video, we are going to see about how to use the ramp up load variation policy in NeoLoad. So, before we move on to the video, this is me, Yavasan Shanmugam. Please don't forget to subscribe to our Little's Law YouTube channel if you have not subscribed yet. Like, share, and comment your questions and feedback in the comment section. So previously we saw about the constant load variation policy. If you have not watched it yet, please do check the description for the link. And today we are going to see about the ramp up. So for that, let me just start from the step one. So here I have an API script. So this script is going to be tested with the load variation policy, and then I have created a population with the same set of browser, the cache, and then the van emulation and the person. So here I'm just going to use only one script for testing it, and then I have nothing to do with the monitors. So let's go back to the runtime part. So here I'm going to create a separate scenario which is going to be ramp up load variation policy. So I'm using different scenarios for each load variation policy. So previously I was using the constant load, and now I'm going to use the ramp up load variation policy. So under this we have just only one population, so we have no choice other than using this. So I'm using the population here, and let's go to the advanced and see whether we can do anything. But here we have nothing else to do, so let's go back to the screen here, the scenario screen. Again, when we come to the ramp up, so we have the same three options in duration policy. So the first one is we have the no limit, and here if you see, when we choose no limit on the duration policy and when it comes to ramp up, so here you can see the initial user number is 2, and then it is incremented by 2 users for every 2 minutes. So here, for doing the test quickly, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add one user. So the initial test is going to be one user, and it will be incremented by one user for every 1 second. And the maximum number of users is going to be 10. So let's see how does this work. So what kind of testing, or for what type of testing do we use this ramp up duration policy? So in case if you are doing a stress testing where you are continuously increasing your user load, so in those scenarios you can use this ramp up where the new load will keep on adding the users every 1 second or every 1 minute, so that you do not want to add any users inside the test manually, and it automatically does it for you. And at one point of time, when the system or when the application goes down, automatically your application will tell you that this is the maximum load that the system can handle. So this is where the ramp up load variation policy comes into picture. So let's now see how does it work. So here I have added one initial number, and then I have incremented one user for every 1 second, and let me click apply to all, and I'm clicking on yes. So there's nothing else to do. So what I'm going to do now is let's click on the play button here, and I'm unchecking this, and let me start the play button here, and let's now wait and see how does this work. Since I have just chosen every one user for every 1 second, automatically in just 10 seconds we can see that all the users have got ramped up in very few seconds. The test is getting initialized. Let's wait for a few more seconds to see how does this work. And now we can see the test is initialized, and let's wait for the users to get ramp up. So here you can see at the very first second there is one user, and then automatically for every 1 second the users are getting ramped up. So the same way, if you are using multiple users, you can increase it in this way so that you can reach the maximum number of users the system can handle. So here you can see for every 1 second, the user has automatically increased. They were started to load into the system. So this is how it works. And then let's go to the scenario two. So for example, let's see. So here, since it is no limit or it does not have any duration limit, so we are supposed to stop the test. And next we have the iteration by iteration. So same thing here. So the only difference here is in the no limit, we do not have the number of iterations. So in this scenario, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just, so in the previous no limit, you can see for every 1 second, the user will increment by one user. But when it comes to iteration, what happens here is the initial user number is 1. It increments by one user for every one iteration. So for every one iteration, you can see one user gets iterated. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just change it to 5. So for every 5 iteration, I will increment the users by 1. And the maximum is one user reached immediately. So I'm going to just change this to 10. So what happens now is two users reached after 5 iterations. So here, previously in this scenario, we have set up the time and we could see the users, 10 users reached after 45 seconds. But now in this scenario, what happens is the initial user number is 1. It increments by one user for every 5 iterations, and the maximum user we have set here is 10. So they say, the tool says that the maximum is 2 users reaches after 5 iterations. That is, in it starts by one user, and after 5 iterations, the second user joins the system. So they say 2 users reached after 5 iterations. And since we have just set up only 10 iterations, it's just going to be 2 users. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just change it to 50. So when I'm changing it to 50 users, automatically you can see here 10 users reached after 45 iterations. So let's now try this scenario and see how does it work. So I'm just saving it again. So this is how it differs actually. So there is a lot of difference between each of these duration policies. So we have to be very careful while choosing the duration policy. It can be either no limit or it can be either by iteration, but we have to make sure that we are choosing the right duration policy for the right load variation policy. So let me just start the test and we will see how does it work. Let me uncheck this here and I have started play. So let's see what happens after we get or we do the 50 iterations. So let's wait for a few more seconds here and let's see how does it work. So here you can see the users are slowly reaching to 10 users and automatically the users have completed their iterations. Let me just click do not copy and I will go to the transactions and let's see whether we have executed the right one. So here you can see we have completed 275 transactions, so which means we have achieved the number of the expected number of iterations. So let's go back here to the summary and here you can see we have reached 45 requests. So that is why, since it's API, so we have reached the 45 requests and automatically the users have come down. So in case if you do want to increase, so you can set it up to 1000, which means 10 users will be reached after 45 iterations. So let me try this so that it will take some more time to complete that test and we can watch how does it work. So the only option here to increase the duration is we do not have the duration limit, but instead we have the iteration limit. So the only way to increase or to lengthen the test or to lengthen the duration of the test is by giving the iteration. So once you give the iterations, automatically you can see here the test goes on long and long. So here you can see so far we have not achieved 1000 iterations. So that's the reason you can see that the test is still running, and that is how you can increase the test. So in case if you are running a stress test, you can automatically increase the load based on the iteration. So that means that after every 5 iterations or 10 iterations, the user will keep on adding. So this will give a steady state mind to the application. That is, after these many consistent or this many static number of iterations, you will get to see new users coming in. So this will actually create a good level of stress to the application, and in fact you can find a lot of bottlenecks, something like the memory leaks, or you can even find the issues in the response times. So far you can see here the test is running fine. So we have got the maximum number of users we wanted to achieve, and here for every 1 second we were running. So here you can see the total iterations completed is 5,000 so far here, which is what we expected here. So let's see. Here you can see that iterations should be 1000. So let's wait and see for how many users we are going to achieve the number of users. So far you can see here we have achieved 6000 iterations. The total request is sent here, and again you can see the elapsed time. So far the test has ran for 1 minute and 55 seconds. So we are going to touch 2 minutes of time, and then when you come to see here that the average response time so far is 0.144 seconds, and the average request we are sending for every second is around 65.6 requests, and the average throughput, that is the amount of data that is received, is 2.14 MB, that's megabit per second. And then here you can see that the current response times we're getting, and the current response time for pages, and the current request per second. So far you can see the users. So finally we were able to see that. Let's go back to the transactions, and here you can see so far we have achieved 9775 iterations, which is almost every user is able to execute at least 1000 iterations. That's what I wanted you to see here. So which is every user here. So for 10 users who executed for 1000 times, which is around 10,000 hits, is what we were able to achieve. So that is why we are trying to run the test with different combinations to show you how really they execute. So in case if you are running in no limit, automatically you reach for 10 users, but then when you until you reach 10 users, you will keep on executing the test. But once you reach 10 users, automatically the system will come down. But when it comes to iteration, here you can see, so until you iterate these many number of iterations multiplied by number of users, you will get to see the test. And the final option is by time. So here you can set the time. So here you can set the time for 2 minutes, or even you can set it for 1 minute. For example, here I'm now setting it for 1 minute, and then the ramp up. So the initial user is 1, and we are going to increment the user by 1 for every 5 seconds, and the maximum number of users is 10. So what here, or what is are we going to achieve here, is that users will reach 10 users after 45 seconds, but they will run the test for 1 minute. So let's try it and see how does it work. So I'm going back. I have chosen the right duration policy and then the right ramp up period, and I'm clicking on the play button. Let me uncheck this, and I'm starting the play. So this is how the load variation policy works for each of these duration policies. So initially we had a no duration policy, and then we had a by iteration, and then finally we have by time. So most of the times we choose either no limit or we choose by time for the stress testing. So in case if you are not doing a load testing, please choose ramp up to do the stress test, because this is the only way you can achieve what you want. So the objective of the stress testing can be achieved only through the ramp up duration policy. Let's go back to the runtime overview, and here you can see so far we have crossed 30 seconds, and we are going to reach 10 users in 45 seconds. And after that, as I told you, after just 1 minute, so here you can see 75% of test has been completed. We are crossing, we're going to reach 90% soon, and after 1 minute of time, automatically the users will start to ramp down, and slowly the test will come to an end. So here you can see the test is stopped and the users will come out of the system. So what did we achieve? So here you can see the duration of this test is 1 minute, and the load policy here is the population is ramp up from one user by adding one user every 5 seconds to a maximum of 10 users. So once we reach 10 users, automatically the test will end. But again, since we have set up the duration policy to 1 minute, so that's why the test has been executed for 1 minute. So in case if we want to run it for 1 hour automatic, but the max once the maximum users has been reached, it will stay at the same point of time. So in that scenario, we can even use it for the load test. So in case if you are running a load test, you can use this particular load variation policy by by you can start your initial users by one user, and then you can increment the users by five for every one minute, or at least like for 30 seconds. So six users every after 30 seconds. So the same way for every 30 seconds you can see six users into the system, or even you can sub reduce it to 15 seconds. So here you can see, you can see 10 users reaches out of 30 seconds. And in case if you want to run a test for 250 users, so 16 users will be reached after 45 seconds. So same way until 250 users it will take time, and then after that automatically the system will start entering its steady state, and at the end the user will start to stop after the test is over, or once the duration is complete here. So in case if I am running this for 1 hour, and here you can see, so for 1 hour 10 minutes with including the ramp up and ramp down. So here you can see 250 users will be reached after 12 minutes and 30 seconds. So after that, they will stay steady, which is for next 48 minutes or 47 minutes and 30 seconds. You can see, or you can find the test will be running or almost for 1 hour, because we have a duration of 1 hour 10 minutes. So this is how the ramp up duration policy works. So in case if you are someone who is just trying to explore how does NeoLoad work, or how does this load variation policy works, please feel free to use all these combinations. Never ever go with just the custom or just with constant. So please try using the ramp up, because once you start using it, you may explore the multiple options that the ramp up load variation policy gives you. So with that, I come to an end. I believe this video is very, very useful to you. So until I meet you in another interesting video, it's bye bye from Vasan Shanmugam and Little's Law.